How many years?
So impromptu, we're here with Hollie Plemons and Sarah Hale. Sarah and Hollie have something in common. Hollie inherited Sarah's superintendent, Angelica Ramsey, and Sarah just happened to be in town from Midland, and so we are getting the two of them together, and this is again an impromptu version of Tick Ed, or Ticked as Lynn says, and so it's just going to be the two of them. And I want to go back and get them to talk about, Sarah just mentioned that they had a school that they were going to have to convert to a charter school. Now say that again, sir. What did you tell them? What did y'all talk about? Tell me how that happened, and what do you see how that is happening and about to happen in Fort Worth. I want y'all to just talk to each other and just capture this. But I want you to go back to the part where you have a school that's failing, and who told them that they were going to have to convert it to a charter?
Well, we have a new superintendent who's a friend of mine, and we were just we were discussing how charters can come, you know, how we get there, you know. And we don't have one in particular that has been discussed at this moment, but we have some that are close to that, the 5-year mark. So there's the 5-year mark for schools, and if we have some that have failed that many years in a row, and so that's the way Morath has set this up, is that we go to charter schools.
Well, don't they go charter so that they don't get taken over by
state? So there's typically 3 choices, and let's talk about past charters in Midland, because I'm not quite sure of the future ones. So let's how we get there.
Yeah,
okay?
how we get there.
And so if they are 5 years in a row, you have 3 options. Basically, it's my understanding. So the TEA can come take over. The school can shut down. Or what's our third? Or we go to charter school.
Right,
Well, and I mean, here's the thing though, that and maybe this resonates with you, you know, you can shuffle students and boundary lines around in such a manner that you could almost set a school up to fail.
Yes, yeah. I agree with that.
Okay? And so, I'm just talking about the past, not the present. I get the feeling in Midland that has happened to some extent. And you can almost pinpoint ones. I could probably name them that I think are probably next, just because they feel like they've got these children that are bused across town. They go to this particular school. It's not their neighborhood school, and it's like, okay, well, is that the plan? I mean, like, you start wondering, is that in the works 5 years ahead of time?
Yes. And how many have been taken over as charter schools?
Well, we have some. We have 1882s are really so. MISD kind of likes to do this thing of, well, that's not really a charter. Well, they are. If they are one of those, they're a charter school. But we have I Did Charter in town, and then we have, is it third Future Schools or something? They're another out of district charter that have come, and that's kind of who they go to. And then we have some that are run by the district, so those employees are still paid by MISD, but they are 1882 schools.
Okay.
Okay, and so
what's an 1882 school?
They're a charter school.
Right. Okay.
So,
well, and so did those all happen while Ramsey was there, or were they happening before?
Riddick brought a lot of them. And so here's the problem is, you know, when you go through a series of superintendents so quickly like we have, we had Riddick, we had Ramsey, now we have Stephanie Howard, you know, it's going to take a long time for the district to show the change that a new positive direction.
Right.
And we know that. And Stephanie is a good lady that I trust, but the expectation that could change overnight, it can't.
Well, it can't, but I love the idea of pushing back and fighting and saying, no, we're going to do things the way our independent school district would do, and y'all are staying out, and our tax dollars isn't going to a private industry, and they're not going to get ownership of this building after X number of years. The citizens paid for it, and it belongs to the school district, and tell them no, we'll close it down and absorb those kids into another school.
Well, and let's
I think
talk
that's
about
great.
That in terms of the state versus independent school districts is, when are we going to have a change where we have enough superintendents that are understanding the gravity of charter schools to where they say, you know what, okay, shut it down. We will find a place for these children, but we will not let you dictate the outcome in our community any further. And that giving us just these 3 options is not enough for us. Because at some point, here's the problem that we have, and we've had this in the past. It is very hard. We know that bonds are a big business, okay? And so our district has been pushing for a bond for a while. And I suspect that's coming as well. Well, it's a very complicated situation, because if we have schools that are getting ready to become charters, what do you do as a new superintendent? I don't know the answer to that. I would have to educate myself on the 3 choices and what the consequences of those things would be. But to me, I think you've got 2 different crowds. You've got the crowd that if you say charters, well, there was nothing else we could do. But then you've also got the other crowd that if a new super came in and said, screw you, we're not doing this.
Right.
We're going to shut it down, or we're going to, and I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough to know what the consequences would be if we did that, but I would really like to know that. And I'm in the process of trying to understand that, and I do have people downtown that I'm trying to understand, like, what would be the consequences if we said XYZ school has a possibility of going to charter because it's failed 5 times. Okay, if we said no, what are the consequences? When can we reopen that school? How long do we have to sit those kids out before we can get that school up and running again and take another try at it?
Well, now I want to know why they can't use their District of Innovation for that. I know that District of Innovation was really just set up for exemptions on certifications for students, but I wonder if they can, if you can't use your District of Innovation. But this is something that we have to look into, because we absolutely, independent school districts, including Fort Worth, is just, I mean, they are hanging on the cliff of what you have seen in Midland happening there.
See? I mean, do you know of charter push?
They are going to mothball 5 of our schools.
They're going to do what?
They're going to mothball, is what our school board president, Toby Jackson, said on a live interview, is that we're going to mothball 5 schools, and possibly for this year, but this fiscal year of 23. And then next year of 24, we're going to do it to 5 more. So that means we're going to have bigger class sizes, because we're going to close 10 schools, but we've lost so much of our students. They're going to have to. And an article just came out where she is saying that she believes that Fort Worth ISD is going to level out at 55,000 kids.
Wow, that's a huge drop.
We were like 76,000. And then it started to, we're down to like 71 right now.
Or what? Or just people are not happy with the district?
Well, people are moving out of Fort Worth that have the means to move out of Fort Worth, but then we have so many people that are coming to Fort Worth, but they
where
do
are
what?
They going? Where are we moving them?
Okay. They're moving to Aledo. They're going out to Aledo, which is just right on the line of Fort Worth, and they have a better school district, but they're not perfect.
When you say better, what is going on in Aledo that a parent would perceive as better than Fort Worth?
Well, they have better scores. They get paid less per student than Fort Worth ISD does, but they have better facilities.
So they got it figured out in a different manner.
Well, they don't have a low socioeconomic population. Fort Worth ISD is heavily weighted in a lower socioeconomic, and not race or sex even, but socioeconomics is the link to the poorer scores, and then your failing curriculum.
And the school district feels that it is their responsibility to fix everything for those low-income kids, and it's not. It is not the taxpayer's responsibility to go in and do that. At some point, the parents need to take responsibility for what is going on in their home, and I don't have the answers for what a school should do there, but we currently have a school that is giving away laundry detergent to the kids so that the kids can have clean clothes. It's being paid for by a grant, so it's not taxpayer funded, but just it's just so much socialism that I'm like, I don't like any of this. And I like better when, just individual campuses will find out, hey, we have a problem with this family, they're going through a hard time, and what are we going to do? And maybe reaching out to the other schools that have more active PTAs and more active parent participation, and asking them to come over and can your PTA adopt this school that doesn't have one and is failing? And let's try to work together as a community to do something besides just saying anybody that wants to come in and get free Tide Pods can.
But don't you think, and I mean my own mind thinks these things, okay? I'm curious if in the 6 months Ramsey has been at Fort Worth ISD, Have you seen a giant push in SEO? Because she loves it. And then on that same note, it all comes down to a conditioning of children in my mind. And like, how do we create for them a normalcy to never even question that? To never even think, like our gut reaction, yours and mine is, this feels very socialist.
Yes.
All of these things, and the swiping of the cards, and all of this shit.
Well, we don't have that yet.
We there's a push for these things, and so like how?
Well, she hasn't been spending a lot since she got into
except
Fort
for
Worth.
downtown, right?
Well, I
The
mean,
building?
that was Scribner. That was Scribner that she did that. So he spent so much money in his last few months there. I mean,
So that was under his term.
Yes, some of our agendas were over $1 billion with one bang of the gavel. $1 billion, just bang, there it just went. And so he pushed all of that stuff. And when she comes in, we were 40 million in deficit, and then a few months passed, and now we're 88 million in deficit. So how are they going to fix that deficit? We're going to punish the kids. We're going to, Scribner changed our lunch program and cut our funding for lunch program in half. And now our kids are literally getting molded food. I mean, we've got pictures of it.
They have Tide Pods.
Yes, well,
they have Tide Pods.
They have Tide Pods, but they have moldy food. And, but she hasn't been spending like a ton of money. Yes, there's been some things that have come across, but she can't. There's no money to spend it there. And I do feel that she was very instrumental in creating the survey opt-in and out portal.
Survey stuff's a big deal for her.
It's not perfect because the parents had to sign the acceptable use policy, which means if they survey your kids and they don't do all the things they promised, they're still covered because you signed the acceptable use policy. And before you could go
What does that acceptable use policy look like? Is it in a form?
It's in a form, and when you log into the portal, you have to give consent to that. Then you can go into the individual surveys.
So they may not even know what they're giving consent to.
They have no idea what they're giving consent to. How many parents know what the acceptable use policy is? How many parents understand opt-in, opt-out? My phone was like going nuts of people not understanding it, and when I told the admins, I understand what you have going on here, but how many parents have the same level of education on what all this means? Parents don't know what an MOU is or an LEA. They hear all of that and they're like, what is that?
The acronyms blow me away. There's nothing we have that's not an acronym, and it's on purpose because people don't even, they feel stupid saying, what does that mean? Whenever it's intentionally made confusing.
So they do feel stupid, and that's where I feel that the schools are circumventing parents, and I have felt that since back to when my oldest, that's now 19, was in first grade. I know a mom that went in for a meeting for first grade, and they said, well, her TPRI is blah, blah, blah. Mom doesn't want to say what's a TPRI. How many moms know?
Right.
Like zero. Nobody knows what that is.
It's intentionally
And they
confusing.
just tell her, here's what how many words per minute. And she's like, okay. And she leaves. And it was very low. The child wasn't doing well. But they never said this is really low. Then at the end of the year, they're like, you got to do summer school. And she's like, she's a straight A student. Yeah, but she's not doing well in reading. Well, how was I supposed to know that? We were telling you the TPRI scores. And she's like, I don't know what that is. And so, that's done on purpose because they get more money for sending kids to summer school. And this was a charter school. This wasn't even a public school.
Do y'all have
that this happened
in Fort Worth?
I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Real quickly, what are 3 things that you would tell Hollie to look for that Ramsey did that was not helpful for your community?
I think the giant push in curriculum to the SEL and the mental health and all of that is extremely concerning, and it almost stands for 3 on its own for me because it's like so big, so far from what we should. So we're worried about that. We're worried about the equity, but we're not worried about the fact that our grades are so low. And I think that's my biggest concern with her. I actually met with her early on when she first came, and I liked her. But when the questions get tough, then I doubt she's called you for a visit.
She's never spoke to me.
Because when you know things and you have questions, and I had questions. We had some SEL programs, and I wanted to figure that out because I wanted to follow the money there. I mean, I'm a digger. I want to understand those things. And they were genuine questions, and as soon as I had asked some hard questions in regard to that, we didn't correspond again after that. So I would say that Interception was a huge thing that she brought, and that was under the, and that had something to do with ESSER funds that we got. And so the push to year-round school is coming from her. I mean, like, we were not far from a year-round. Yeah. Our summer was so small.
They've increased our day, and our kids have to go to school more minutes every day. Correct. Because it's the kids' fault that they don't have enough time in the classroom. But then when they get more time in the classroom, you got to do this 2-hour survey.
And the technology is another one of my concerns when we're pushing and pushing. You know, technology is a huge problem. We use technology we use technology in a crisis situation, and we ended up never pulling back on that. And so to the kids, that's what it is. It's a crisis thing that we're using as everyday learning.
Hollie, if you were sending a message to parents, what would your greatest concern today be with Fort Worth ISD?
Opt your children out of social emotional learning, out of surveys, opt them out of the STAR. That gets a little bit more tricky when you get into high school, but you have to stop the bloodline for the data mining. Yes. And so don't sign the acceptable use policy in the survey opt-in and out portal. Send an email to every board member, the superintendent, every single person in your child's building every single year, and send it to downtown and whatever your administration is, we call ours downtown, and send them information that your child is completely opted out from social emotional learning and all surveys, and get that in writing. It doesn't mean they're not going to do it. You still have to still have to pay attention to it, and if you catch them doing it after you've opted out, they're going to say it's your fault and you should have known better, because that's what they told me.
Right.
But opt your kids out.
Great call to action. Thank you, Sarah. Hale can be found on Facebook at Table Talk. And Hollie Plemons is Hollie Plemons on Facebook, and it's an open page, and both of them have great information. And if that does not work for you, you can contact Families Engaged at www.familiesengaged.org, and we will answer your question or put you in touch with both of them. Thank you, parents and activists, for coming on to talk about your schools.